For the tech requirements regarding the project, it's going to be a little hard to not showcase a few examples and also just like what we're basing it off of. So this is just a lot of the reasoning, and I'm keeping it as simple as possible for any of you that are PC fanatics or nerds, forgive me, okay? So we're keeping it as simple as possible. If you have a system, as you can see here, that beats the minimum requirements to play Limbus Company, you're most likely going to be capable of doing a recording. But they don't really mention a model here of i5. So let's take a look at an esports game like Counter-Strike. You'll notice here that they mention that they specifically suggest CPUs that have 4 hardware CPU threads or cores. And they mention an i5 750. So let's just beat an i5 750. If I were to look at like any modern CPU, such as like an i3 13100, this is going to be released from 2023 of Q1. That is a 4-core 8-thread versus this 4-core 4-thread i5. And as you can see, from 2009 compared to 2023, that's such a big jump, right? In year. That's really fantastic. But let's look at something more impressive, okay? Let's look at something like this Mac Pro. I currently own a Mac Pro 5.1, and it is a 12-core system. I've upgraded the CPUs, and I have 120 gigs of RAM in the system. If we were to look at that, and then let's look at the comparison. So this is the CPUs I have in my system. Let's say it wasn't a dual core, and it was just like a dual CPU. It's just one CPU. So now I have 6 cores, 12 threads, and this clock speed. Now, with a slower clock speed and a lower core and thread count, it still outperforms my system, metrically speaking. And that's actually really why I would say the TLDR is any computer released within the last 7 years is most likely going to be able to run Counter-Strike and also Limbus Company, which means you should totally be fine to do recordings on Reaper and Audacity. We can even see there is tech requirements for Reaper if we scroll down, but they don't really get into the gist of hardware. They just talk about the operating system, and the same thing for Audacity. They don't really mention a CPU or GPU to work off of. So that's just something to consider, is that if it's a multi-core or multi-threaded CPU and you have at least 8 gigs of RAM, you're going to be comfortable recording. Let's look at a few examples here on Facebook Marketplace. We have ourselves like the Dell Optiplex, these systems you can see at schools. They typically have processors like i5s or i7s, like, again, models that I would totally suggest to look for. And if we were to look at the comparison versus my Mac Pro, you can see it totally beats it. And that's just a 4-year difference instead of it being from 2023, right? So 6 cores, 6 threads, slower clock speed, but even though the clock speed is quite slow and the threads are a lot lower, it's going to be a lot more efficient because it's so much newer. Okay, and these HPZ workstations are also really good to look for. These Dell Precision workstations. We have a lot of these at school, actually, for those that are doing video editing or digital art. And then even looking at some MacBook Pros from 2019, this one with an i9 in it. It doesn't have like a lot of storage, like it's 512 gigabytes, but 16 gigs of RAM and an 8-core processor. I would say right now you would have no issues using a system like this. So I hope that that's helpful. I just wanted to provide further clarification. So if you have a system that, even let's say you even have this system, you're going to be fine. You don't need to worry. And if you have like a computer from the last 7-ish years, they've gotten so efficient that they're a lot more powerful than the behemoth that was the Mac Pro from 2012.